Welcome to Autism Approved, brought to you by Enzymedica. Now, here's your host, Kristen Selby Gonzalez.
Hi, and welcome to Autism Approved. I'm your host, Kristen Selby Gonzalez. Right now, we are currently in Seattle, Washington, where the U.S. Autism and Asperger Association is launching their 6th annual World Conference. If you want more information about this conference or to see the presentations, visit them at www.usautism.org. Well, I'd like to introduce our first guest, who's a presenter here. His name is Alex Doman. He is the founder and the CEO of Advanced Brain Technologies. So welcome.
Thank you, Kristen.
I'm really excited to be able to talk with you because you know how much I love your program. And
it's great. Thanks so much for having me.
A lot of people don't know that Advanced Brain Technologies is actually the home of the listening program.
It is.
So do you want to maybe elaborate a little bit on how the difference and how you guys kind of brought it all together?
You bet. So Advanced Brain Technologies is the company I founded in 1998, and I had a vision to make sound brain fitness universally attainable to everybody on the planet. So what's sound brain fitness?
Yeah.
It is a goal and it's a process. So the goal is to help people reach their greatest potential by using sound to maximize their brain performance. And then we use specific music and technologies to help people achieve that goal. So the listening program is a music listening therapy that we've designed that people use in order to achieve sound brain fitness.
Wow. And so it's done with, and I know this, one, because I've taken your courses, but it's done with the headphones, and you either can do CDs or an iPod, correct?
That's right. So the program's available in different formats, and it's a structured music program. So music listening therapy isn't using music for entertainment. It's using very specialized music that's been produced to produce specific effects, to help with emotional regulation, to help with listening and communication, social engagement, and generally improve all aspects of your life by supporting your nervous system. So the program involves following a very specific protocol that's individualized for each listener, listening through headphones 15 or 30 minutes a day, 5 days a week over the course of several months.
And so do they work with somebody who is, I guess, trained?
Yeah, parents work with a trained certified provider who's generally a licensed healthcare professional or an educator who we've certified as a listening program provider.
And you've been doing this since 1998.
That's right.
Wow. And so it's definitely evolved since then, I imagine.
Certainly has.
Because I remember when I would first read about you guys had CDs, and I know you still offer CDs for those who have those sets. But it's really kind of now gone into the iPod mode, right?
Well, it has, and what's important for us is that this is attainable for everybody. Not everyone has an iPod and that technology, but they have a CD player. So we have CD format available, or people can get preloaded iPods. And as we go to the future, we'll be able to bring this technology to people's own individual devices. So it's really, expanding the accessibility.
Like almost like just downloading it eventually.
Well, not downloading, actually. No? More direct access than that.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah.
Now, what inspired you in the very beginning to help people with autism?
Well, I've grown up in a family, I'm third generation in a family that is in the field of human child development. So my grandfather was a physiatrist, rehab physician that helped brain-injured children with their recovery. My father and his sister and their cousins were second generation, and in the early 70s, my father and grandfather started working with kids on the autism spectrum.
Wow.
Looking at them not at the time as kids that were considered to have a psychiatric disorder, but kids that had dietary issues, health issues, and had sensory processing issues. And they began to develop individualized programs that parents would do at home to help those kids improve in their life. So I grew up in it.
Wow, and so that was music kind of your love, and so you were trying to figure out how to...
Music was my love, but also I had auditory deficits growing up, and I had learned through some of the modalities that my father was using that music did have an impact, and specialized music had an impact, and it had an impact on me. So once I understood that, I became very interested in researching sound, technology, and music, and developing methods that would really help people.
Now, one of the things, when I'm thinking, I get this question asked a lot to me. What is the difference between, if you're looking at a program, your music listening programs, versus others. So I know the differences, but for the viewers out there, what are the differences if they're kind of confused on where to go and where to turn to, and how do they know this is a good fit for their individual child?
That's a great question, Kristen. You know, there are clinic-based programs and there are home-based programs, and they're all couched under what we call listening programs or listening therapies. So they use music that's been modified in certain ways to help produce certain effects neurologically. The listening program is the only music listening therapy because we actually arrange and record the music from the ground up.
Okay.
And we produce it from start to finish in order to have certain results. So our approach is quite different from other methods. You know, the listening program is used in pediatric hospitals, on military bases with wounded warriors. It's used with stroke patients, and it's used with people on the autism spectrum across the world in healthcare facilities, hospitals, schools, but most importantly in the home. And we wanted to create something that was effective and was affordable and something a family could easily implement. You know, parents have so many choices in terms of what they're going to do.
Mm-hmm.
And we want to make something easy for them that's going to give them results. And that's what the listening program's really about.
Well, one of the questions that I got recently on Facebook actually was, because people see that I do the listening program with my son, and they'll say, oh, well, you're a provider, you do this, you do that. What's the difference? And then they say, well, then also, can I do this with other therapies? I get that question probably asked more than any other question. Now, I know the answer to that,
right,
but I'm sure the viewers might want to know.
Well, the answer is the listening program is a fantastic adjunct therapy. It serves as a foundation to help support whatever else you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
It's about helping the individual that's doing the listening be available and be accessible, to help them better self-regulate, to be able to process multisensory information, not go into sensory overload.
Mm-hmm.
So once we calm their nervous system with the music, they're ready and available and engaged for whatever else that you're doing. So it's like a primer
mm-hmm.
that helps everything work more effectively.
I almost think of it as that foundation too, because with my son, I mean, he loves his music. I've told you that so many times. And for you guys out there that are watching, I remember when I first met you, and I've told this story a ton of times, but it's absolutely the truth. I was so nervous that he wouldn't wear the headphones.
Yep.
And I just thought, oh gosh, I'm going to go to this program. How am I going to get him to do that? And I remember asking you, well, can we put speakers in the rooms? Because I really was convinced he was not going to put those headphones on. And you said to me, oh, you know, when you put them on, you know, he will feel the difference. And it was like watching butter melt. I mean, he just completely, almost relaxed his entire body. And from that moment on, that child has asked me for classical music. And when he is getting into that fight or flight mode, whether it be maybe we were out doing something and he had to process a lot of information, or maybe there's just something going on in his body, that's the first thing that he goes to is when we come home, Mommy, I want my classical music, or can you get my music for me?
So Jackson knows that's a tool to help him self-regulate.
Absolutely, and how amazing is that?
Yeah.
To me, I'm still blown away by that. It's what 9-year-old do you know that's sitting there? I'm sure you know many, but for the most of us, we don't know a lot of 9-year-olds that are asking, can I have my classical music? So it's a great way, I think, not only to help them self-regulate, but also to really introduce them to beautiful pieces in the classical world. You know, because music is great. I love music. I'm a big music fan. But, you know, at 9 years old, I don't think I was really introduced to some of the pieces that you guys record.
Well, it's about opportunity. You know,
mm-hmm.
music touches all of us, and it's about being exposed to just the wealth of incredible music that's been with us for so long. And part of what makes the listening program different is we have focused on the aesthetic. We have focused on the musical experience. And how do we use that music to its greatest effect by just enhancing the natural attributes that Mozart, that Vivaldi, that Bach composed? And how do we add a therapeutic value to those without taking away from that art?
Yeah.
And that's part of what really makes the listening program stand apart from existing recordings that are being modified in computer programs.
And when I just think when I listen, because he has two different ones. You have the ones for music or therapeutic listening, right? And then you have sound health, which I think might be good to elaborate to the viewers on.
So we produce very specific programs that are listened to through headphones, but then we also create background music. So music that is designed to help you relax, to help you focus, or to help create energy. So it's very much based on the tempo of the music. We know that slow tempos are like sonic sedatives, so they slow us down and help us to self-regulate. Faster tempos with a stronger beat are going to help get our energy up and stimulate us and get us activated. So we record music at certain tempo ranges and at certain frequency ranges, knowing high frequencies are like a sonic stimulant, right? So like sonic caffeine, high frequencies charge the brain, give it cortical energy, where the low frequencies are more grounding. So by using the right tempos, by using the right frequencies, we then can create a backdrop to help focus our attention, increase our performance, or to relax when we're under stress.
Well, and the reason I bring that up is because when my son listens to his therapeutic listening, on the just an everyday part of our life, if we're in the car, if I'm in the kitchen cooking, we homeschool, so if we're in the classroom, and I used to be a teacher for those that are watching, and if I had your music when I was teaching, I would have used this in my classroom as well, especially when the kids first get there in the morning and everybody's really hyper. It would have been nice to have something calming, to kind of help everybody get in that mode of, okay, we're going to sit down and focus now.
Right.
Or after lunch when everybody's kind of lethargic, it would have been nice to have a higher tempo to kind of get their engines revving again. Right. But I just love that you have a mixture of all of that, because I think it actually helps with the therapeutic too, because he starts to recognize, the different tempos and the different beats, and even bedtime, we use your sleepy baby. I can't, first of all, just so you know, every baby shower I go to, they get a Sleepy Baby CD from me.
I love it.
That's the first, I actually buy a set of, I think, 4, and I put it in their whole little baby blanket thing, and I get more compliments on that, because nobody knows. They're like, oh, where'd you get this from?
Right.
And he's still at night, he'll ask for that. We put it on, and it just, as he falls asleep, that's what he goes to sleep to. So.
Well, my 11-year-old son's going to kill me, but so does he. He's had it since he was 2.
Well, I hear it through the baby monitor, so I feel like I'm hearing it, because I can hear that, the whole lullaby, soundtrack. So now, if somebody was out there and they're talking about, and I don't want to bring up other therapies that are out there, but I know there's other music therapies. And the one thing that I like about your guys's is that it has that the ABC modules. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Well, the first thing that I want to say is that there's value to all the listening therapies that are out there. And it's about finding the right match and what resonates and feels best for your child. So I think that's most important.
So if they're doing one now and it's working for them,
then great. If it's working,
what I say.
then stick with it. But how long is it going to work, and what's the experience, and is it something that the child enjoys, engages with, and looks forward to? One of the things that I learned using some other therapies is that I was seeing kids actually go into a state of fight or flight in the process of the therapy, and their systems were shutting down. So what I wanted to do was create something that helped to meet the child where they were, and then to use a progressive entrainment process to then lead them along a path, so that with sound we could start with slow tempos, something easy to digest, easy to process, without a lot of sound processing to it. Leads them in. They get comfortable with that experience. Then we gradually begin to make the sonic changes to the sound. So once they're comfortable, we can go through those changes, but then we have to reintegrate. So we do a warm-up phase, we do a workout phase, then we go back to integration. So when we finish what we started and slow the tempos, help with that self-regulation. So what we're really doing is regulating arousal as the child's going through the process. So we meet them where they're at, use progressive entrainment to take them through a training process, then lead them back out so that they are not met with a state of fight or flight or left within it because their arousal gets too high and they actually get sensory overload, when what we're trying to do is to help decrease their sensory overload.
Well, what I love about that and how I think of it, and it might have been one of your examples, but is when you go to a gym, you warm up first. Like, nobody goes and just runs full speed ahead.
Right.
You have to warm up because you'll pull a muscle or you won't feel good afterwards. So you stretch, you warm up, then you do your heavy workout. And then even on the treadmill, what does it have? A cool down phase. Yeah. And so, our bodies are just made to have that cool down phase. And I love the way you kind of like slowly take them up and then they come back down. And the one thing I hear about other therapies, and again, if they're working for you guys, great.
Right.
But the one thing I hear negative about any type of auditory music therapy is, oh, my child's either too hyper or they get aggressive sometimes afterwards or they shut down. And I sometimes wonder if it's because it goes right to that workout phase without having something similar to what you're doing of the warm-up workout and then cool down.
I personally worked with thousands of kids with brain injury, with Down syndrome, with autism spectrum disorders, with all sorts of challenges and opportunities and differences in their life. And as I saw kids struggle in response to their therapies, it didn't make sense to me.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't have to be hard or be work always to work and produce a change.
Mm-hmm.
So we really wanted to find a gentler way to go. And I think it's also important that because you have an experience with one listening program or listening therapy does not mean that any listening therapy
Mm-hmm.
is going to have that same response. So we can't characterize these as all the same. Just because they use music and it's headphones and it's a ordered, structured process of listening does not mean that they're all the same. And the listening program is really more different than it is similar to the other things the parents are exploring.
Well, what I love is that is exactly what happened to us. As you know, we tried another listening therapy out there, I think probably about a year and a half before I'd met you.
Right.
And it was very negative for us. It was not a joyful experience. And if I wouldn't have figured out or researched or met one of you guys at a conference, I would have thought they were all the same.
Right.
And so it was very good to know. It's very great for you guys to know that they're not all the same and to really do your homework and research. And they can call your guys' corporate offices and then go to your website. Do you want to give that information to them so they have that?
We've got a great staff of program consultants at Advanced Brain Technologies that are there to talk to parents, that are there to talk to professionals. So our website is advancedbrain.com, and our U.S. phone number is 801-622-5676.
And I think that's important because if you have questions, call them. That's what they're there for. And they want to be able to answer those questions to see if it's a right fit. Because I know if it's not a right fit,
right,
you guys will not encourage them to move forward on that.
No, we've encouraged families not to use our program, not because the program won't necessarily be a fit, but is it the right time?
Mm-hmm.
So it's important to consider in a family's lifestyle.
Do they have the time to do it?
Do we have the time to do it, and is it going to be more disruptive than supportive? So sometimes it's about prioritizing
Mm-hmm.
and modifying a schedule. I mean, a family can do this in just 15 minutes a day.
Yeah.
That's the great thing. So we have 96 opportunities in 24 hours to do the listening program.
I love that.
That's what I tell parents. Can we find one 15-minute unit to do it? And most families can do it once they see the potential opportunity to help their kids.
Well, and I think one thing, too, to note, you guys, is that to always get the hearing checked before you start any auditory listening program, correct?
If there is a concern about hearing loss,
Mm-hmm.
or if there is a history of ear infections or ear fluid, we want to make sure that there's good oral health before the program begins. Sometimes what we actually find through the process of listening is we may discover some issues.
Mm-hmm.
And ear infections and middle ear fluid are of great concern for kids on the spectrum because it's very common,
Mm-hmm.
Especially with what's going on with food sensitivities, food allergies, and that producing the issues that actually lead to the infections in the fluid, something that should really be looked at.
Well, and I love that this is a home-based program and that you can do it at home. You can do it with your other children in the home. You can do it yourself. I've listened with my son. And so I love the fact that it's something that I can have, and it doesn't become, I don't think of it as a therapy anymore. I think of it as a lifestyle. And it's just part of what we do. And, and I'm so excited that we get to kind of wake up in the morning, and I love hearing him ask for that classical music, and I love knowing when I'm cooking breakfast and he's sitting there listening, looking at his book. That's the best feeling for me as a mom. So
when I love that you said lifestyle because it starts, okay, how long does it take us to go through this?
I get that question all the time. How
process.
long do we have to do it?
How long do we have to do it? And it becomes, can we do it more?
Mm-hmm.
And do we have to stop?
Yes.
Because it does become part of the lifestyle.
Mm-hmm.
And it just becomes, it's like doing your workout, eating your food, brushing your teeth, do your listening. It just
and
becomes
that's really
part of life.
And just so the parents know out there too, if you're trying to find that 15 minutes, I can assure you, and I can't assure a lot of things in life, but when your child, or whoever is listening, when they start to really fall in love with that, you don't get that choice anymore whether or not you have that 15 minutes. My son does it for 30 minutes straight because that was what he put himself on. We thought we were going to do 15 minutes, and no way. He was like, he just wanted to keep on going.
Well, and he knows what he needs, and I'm glad you said everybody, because we're talking a lot about kids, but it isn't just about kids.
It's at any age, and, you know, and when I say children, too, if you have a 2-year-old or a 52-year-old, it doesn't matter, you know, so it's even as the moms and dads out there, we really need our listening. One of the first things Alex asked me before we started filming was, did you do your listening today? And I said, no.
Well, I did mine right before I walked in. It was great. My wife, Mandy, actually sent me a video of Brendan. I have a 21-month-old
The most
son
adorable child ever.
listening with his bone conduction in his high chair this morning, playing with his cars.
I love it.
It was great.
I should have done my listening today, and I did not. But I know my son did, is what I told him.
You still have many opportunities.
I do. I have 95 more opportunities if there's 96 in the day, right?
That's right.
Well, one thing before we end, I want to make sure that they know about this very exciting new book. This is a new book that's now like on the bestseller list, right?
Well, it's a bestseller, and it just came out 4 weeks ago, and we're so thrilled.
And it's called Healing at the Speed of Sound, and you and Don Campbell wrote this.
That's right.
And so can you tell us a little bit about it?
Sound is a pillar of health, and it's the unrecognized pillar of health, in our opinion. You know, we think about the food we eat, the water we drink, the air that we breathe, and what's going into our body, but we don't consider the thing that's going in our body 24/7, 365, and that's sound. And sound can support our health and development and our creativity and help us to learn and manage stress and help us with surgical recovery times. But conversely, noise can do harm, and it can cause physiological and psychological ill health. So what we wanted to do is bring the world's attention to this topic of sound, start a conversation that's research-based. We spent 3 years writing this book. We reviewed more than 10,000 references looking at the last 10 years of neuroscience, music effects research, and all the related fields to sound and music, and wanted to put together a practical guide to help teach people how to use sound from morning until night and pre-birth until the end of life.
I love it. And they can get this at all major bookstores, right?
All major bookstores.
And is it a link on your website as well, I imagine?
There is a website for the book, healingatthespeedofsound.com.
Okay.
You can order the book from Barnes & Noble, Amazon, walk in your bookstore. And what's great about this book, it's not just hardcover. This is one of the first multi-sensory books. You can get it for your iPad, your Nook Color, or your Kindle Fire, that is an enhanced ebook with embedded music, embedded videos, and the book has almost 100 internet links. So the book is really this thick. Okay. It's not just what's between the pages, it's all the rich content that you access on the web, as well as what's between. Well,
congratulations on this.
Thanks so much.
And thank you so much for being here with us and talking with us.
My pleasure.
And if you guys want to find Alex, again, go to his website at advancedbrain.com. And I want to thank all of you guys for allowing us to bring hope into your home. Until next time.
Thank you for joining us for Autism Approved with Kristen Selby Gonzalez. Please join us next week for another episode brought to you by Enzymedica.